A very good morning to you all and welcome to Views, People and News. That's VPN here at 93.3 KFM. My name is Judith Atim. Today is Saturday, July the 27th, 2024. And we're just hours after the 33rd Olympic Games kicked off in Paris. And yes, Team Uganda is representing the country. I must say, the opening ceremony was spectacular. Mm-hmm. I actually thought I wouldn't wake. I thought I would oversleep. It was really, really interesting. But let's just move to what we are talking about today. Our topic is a better approach to public governance challenges. And with me in the studio, I have Herbert Anderson Burora, anti-corruption activist and also team lead of NRM-IR. He's also the former deputy RCC for Rubaga Division. I also have Dr. Sylvia Namubiru Mukasa, CEO, Legal Aid Service Providers Network, and a former magistrate. And my other guest is on his way. I'll be announcing his presence, acknowledging his presence as soon as he arrives. Dr. Sylvia, you're welcome to the show.
Thank you, Judith, and good morning to the listeners. Happy to be in the studio.
Thank you. Again. Thank you very much. Herbert, good morning.
Good morning, Judith.
Good to have you.
Thank you for inviting me here once again. And to the listeners who are always on listening and getting what maybe they expect from the show. And I hope we shall have a wonderful show.
Thank you. So, well, on Tuesday this week, that's July 23rd, several young people took to the streets to protest against the widespread corruption in government, which is crippling the country. And time and again, we've heard the head of state admitting that corruption is one of the biggest problems in Uganda. The president has repeatedly made pronouncements about fighting corruption, and several corruption allegations have been made in the past several months against government officials, including the Speaker of Parliament, some members of Parliament, former ministers, and so many others. It is estimated that we are losing, as a country, close to 10 trillion shillings to corruption every year. So when these young people mobilized on social media to hashtag March to Parliament on the 23rd of July in a peaceful protest, there was heavy military deployment the day before and on Tuesday itself, which made the city look more like a war zone. True to its word, the government cracked down on the protesters and arrested them, some arrested violently. They're in several jails, they've been denied bail, been remanded to prison, and they're expected to be produced in court on July 30th. That's a week after they were arrested. The charges they're facing being a public nuisance and being idle and disorderly. The DPP says they are to review the case files and they will re-examine these charges and the evidence brought against the suspects. The government has also come out to accuse the protesters of being used by foreign powers to create unrest. There are also allegations that this protest was not organic, but rather there was foreign money that was used to fund it. That's what we've been hearing. And back to the protesters, we're also hearing cases of abuse, like sexual violations perpetrated by police officers. Victims are crying out that they've been sodomized. They're also reporting being beaten up severely and forced to confess that they are working for maybe certain political parties, and so many other issues that have come up. And I would like to hear from you, Doctor, from a legal standpoint, just how do you think this protest or the protesters were handled from the time they set off on the streets to where we are right now?
From the legal point of view.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much for the opportunity to discuss the issues of importance to everyone. First and foremost, of course, we can't forget the people we lost in the week.
Yeah.
And I want to commiserate with the people who passed on, Peter of NRM, Mr. Kenya.
Yes.
Yes. May their soul rest in eternal peace.
Amen.
Yeah, this week we experienced some kind of unprecedented protests. I wouldn't call them riots. They were peaceful protests. And according to the youth or the young people that participated in it, they were exercising their constitutional right to freedom of expression and assembly, agitated by the ongoing governance issues, especially related to corruption, because that was the hashtag, March to Parliament, corruption. And the Constitution gives every citizen a right to participate in the affairs of their country. The same Constitution, Article 29, I think, allows for freedom of expression as long as it's peaceful assembly, as long as it's peaceful demonstration. However, again, taken aback by the other legal requirements, some of which, of course, the courts have pronounced themselves, that you need to get permission of police for you to be able to assemble, and then you are able to be supported. Unfortunately for Uganda, it looks like it is not possible to get that kind of permission to assemble peacefully. So I was observing these protests a bit far. I think they happened when I was in Yumbe district, and I was observing them on social media. And I kept on seeing young people raising peaceful demonstration placards and the constitution, I mean the flag of this country. And so they kept on saying slogans, and everyone was seeing from the face of it that they were peaceful demonstrators. Unfortunately, they were mishandled. Many of them were bungled up and put behind those police cars and rushed to police cells. Others were, of course, chastised, and they were lined before court. My opinion is that I don't think that would have been the right way to handle peaceful demonstration. And the law enforcement, especially the Uganda police, has continuously abused that right to peaceful assembly. And even before riots turn, because if riots turn violent, that's when they are supposed to exercise that unreasonable force. But before the riots turn violent, they are supposed to support the protesters, to express their, after all, they are not holding stones, they are not holding anything that is causing fear and etc. So they were going to parliament. So under normal dispensation of law enforcement, you'd expect that they would have been guided and even supported to reach parliament and show their dissatisfaction. I would also have expected the leaders of parliament, because they are leaders of the people, to receive them and address them and address their issues. But unfortunately, in Uganda, it's not like that. Then we also noticed that the charges that they were charged with, some of them have already been struck off the law books by the Constitutional Court. I done disorderly nuisance and etc. So I don't know, because everything was being done in a rush, that even the officers who preferred the charges chose to charge them under a non-existent law. Now this continues. The violation of their rights continues, even within court, that they are not given the opportunity. Because whoever appears before the courts of law, it is a procedural aspect that you have to apply for bail. And that application has to be listened to. None of them were listened to. Most of them, I can't say none of them, but most of them, yes. Most of them. And first and foremost, they were brought before court very late. That could also be one of the factors. And probably they intended it, because everything was done in a rushed manner. We usually see police taking long to investigate certain cases, and suspects stay longer, beyond 48. But these ones were quickly processed with wrong charges, defective charges, and then aligned before courts of law, and even the courts of law would not exercise that other. So the safeguards of the pre-procedural rights or pre-trial detention rights were not put in place. But I also want to understand, I imagine myself, I'm the judicial officer, there are many suspects that have been brought very late, and you begin to say, I give an opportunity to each one of them to begin to apply for bail. So the pressures were all over, and in that process you find that each individual involved was operating under a lot of stress. But nonetheless, the judicial, I expected, because I come from the judicial point of view, I expected that while the police has violated, and they have not given the young protesters an opportunity to peacefully demonstrate, then the judiciary becomes the arbiter. They are the ones to safeguard, because they are the referees. they look at all options, and we expected that at this juncture of the court, probably that's where the rights were supposed to be safeguarded.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, Herbert, you have been vocal also in terms of all these excesses and corruption issues that we are seeing that are being raised. You have an ongoing case in court right now, and I don't want us to go into that. I don't want to violate the principle of sub judice. I don't want us to talk about that. But so I also don't want us to mention names that have got into this case of hate speech and so on. So I want you to restrict your conversation to the vice of corruption generally, and what you basically think, how you think this protest, this peaceful protest, should have been handled.
Well, I think this whole thing has a background, and if you want to discuss the protests without discussing the cause, then you might miss a point. And at this point, we need the point. We don't need the others. The others are just spices, but the main cause are the causes. For the last about 5 months, there have been several allegations in the public. Information discovered, first of all, by members of the public, and not members of the machinery and infrastructure put in place by the legal framework of this country. And those allegations stem from the service delivery inefficiencies in the country, the high demand of service delivery in terms of equipping hospitals, condemned schools, building schools in different parts of the country, the road infrastructure that keeps breaking every now and then, based on one substandard work done, a road that is supposed to live for about 15 years, going for 5 years. But the money budgeted for was meant that this road should be constructed to last 15 years without repairs. And I don't remember which function it was. Either recently it was in the east, where the president passed through Mukono Nyenga to Jinja, and he complained that this road that we have just constructed, I've passed in it, and it is already, potholes are all over. And he tasked the Minister of Transport to give him reasons. Well, we never had reasons, but we heard that the potholes were patched up. So if we don't look into some of those things that led to the protests. So fast forward, information started coming out showing how illicit transactions were being conducted within the precincts of Parliament, allegedly involving the leadership and the leaders of Parliament. And we questioned. I became hard on this to the extent that I had to make a decision to leave my job if I was not supposed to speak about certain things that are going in within actually what is within my job description, but I am restricted to talk about it. I made a decision to make sure, because service delivery affects your team, affects you, my sister, and everyone. It is general. Like, we use the same roads. I may not have the capacity to go to take my children to public school, to private schools, but I need to have my child go to a public school, and he or she is competitive, gets the education they deserve. Not to take them for the sake of going to school, not a matter of making your child wear a uniform, get books,
just perform the ritual of waking up every day. It becomes just a ritualistic
It's not a ritual.
Yes.
That children wear uniforms and get books and go to school. What are they getting from schools? Right now, if you see your CV, the CV, you will see who gets a job. You are Budonian, you are who, you are St. Mary's, you are this.
You must go, you must be, it's quite elitist. It's a system that promotes and perpetuates elitism.
Exactly. So if I see that my future's children is endangered, is threatened, and I keep quiet, it will catch up with them. So that's why we advocate to say we need to have these schools performing, and they can only perform if there is discipline in appropriation, if there is discipline in accountability, if there is discipline in evaluation and monitoring. If there is no discipline in such areas, we can never have such things performing. Our hospitals, every MP, when they get a problem, they quickly get a ticket, they get accommodated, they have their bills paid for. They go to the US, they go to India, they go to Nairobi, they go to everywhere, because they know themselves. That is a sign of no confidence in the infrastructure, the health infrastructure in this country. So when you attempt to keep quiet, when such social services are under threat, you get a problem yourself. So when we questioned to get back to the demonstrations, Ugandans made calls, said we need an audit in parliament to ascertain this. Members of parliament themselves have been on the floor to raise these matters. They have been ganged up. They have been abused on the floor, on the Hansard of parliament. There are records of MPs being abused as being nonsensical, as being raising matters that are nonsensical. Yet these are matters that the public has interest in. Those issues have not been addressed. The accountability, and I'm sorry, I should have started by congratulating Honorable Sechikubo, Honorable Sara Opendi, Honorable
for raising the
177 signatures required. Because if one is saying that no, these transactions were legally conducted, they go to the 1.7 billion legally, but still you don't want to raise your legality, to explain it, you suffocate those who are trying to actually help you to raise the bar of the legality on the transaction, but you still stifle it. That gives you an aspect that maybe there is something wrong. And the president himself has come up clear to say there is a problem here. I think it was either State of the Nation or the budget speech where he said, now, if we are to handle the corrupt, we need amnesty. And I agree with him. We need amnesty. Every time now why you see the IGG cannot stand up tall to say this is wrong, why the Auditor General cannot stand up tall to write a report. For the first time, I saw the Auditor General writing a report, and after presenting it, he comes up to make an amendment. And making an amendment of an institution that is under scrutiny. And you don't come to explain how you made an amendment, but you just make it. And all of those things aggregate into anger, public anger, whereby we have issues of lack of accountability, where we don't want to hold people accountable. And over time, let me tell you, team, we are here to disrupt the root. We are here to tell people stop eating. If you translate the eating, we are telling you now, biblically, it is sin to be greedy, to be a glutton, to eat beyond we are supposed to eat. And the leadership of part of this country is saying we are eating. So we are telling them you are becoming greedy now. You are no longer eating. You are no longer eating. It is beyond eating, and stop that habit of the way you are eating. Let's all have a round table where it is sustainable. Whatever we are eating, it is sustainable. Eat what is allocated for you. But if you start eating what is being allocated for others, then it stops eating, it stops being eating. And if these young people, all of this time we have been making noise, a team who have lost status. I used to come here and you address me as RCC. I used to come here with an official car. I used to come here with a lot of pomp. Now I have to come hiding. I have lost that.
That's really sad.
Yeah, I have lost that, and it is not because I lose it in the interest of another thing. The leadership of Parliament has been investigating me, whether I have other sources of money. They have been investigating whether I have acquired property, or if I have acquired a new car, whether there is a new lifestyle. I have been the same. So, if the issue, now we were saying that Aurora is protesting, is speaking this because he's foreign funded. Where is the funding? You have my contacts. Do you have any contact you have seen that is strange from what I have been calling or that has been calling me? It's not there. I have not even changed residence. You have investigated me. If you see what has been in court, you have investigated me, and actually you have found that I have been the same person as I was. But I am raising this because I have children, I have relatives, I have friends. It is sad that even when you have an office you are in, we are always in contributions. We are contributing for our friends who are sick and they cannot acquire treatment in the country. We have to contribute to them to go to India. Now, you come as Parliament, you donate 1 billion shillings. Mulago has need of equipment that are 50 million, 100 million. Even those that are there are not, they are not serviced. They are breaking. You heard the other day in Entebbe, women in Entebbe, they don't even have a single delivery bed for women. Here in Entebbe, you go to Mulago today, you live here, you can send someone even when the show is running. Every bedside has a private pharmacy medicine cup. Every single bed. This means there is a problem. So if young people are saying we need to protest against certain leaders who have exhibited no remorse, actually, let me tell you, in any functional state or country, Parliament would not have not sat on Tuesday. There is no Parliament. You are not going to sit Parliament on a barrel of a gun, on an APC outside. AK-47 is protecting you. That means there is a problem. On 23rd, when they heard that people were going to protest, the first thing they would have done is, before we sit, let us listen to these people. Yes. What are they saying? If you start sitting a Parliament that is supposed to be a people's house, a people's Parliament, where they are supposed to come actually even and be in the gallery to see what you are deliberating on. Now you can't access the gallery. And the gallery is meant for the public. You get it? That is a problem. Parliament should not sit again if people are protesting, if people are resenting, if people are saying, no, there is a problem. Because Parliament is meant to sit, to discuss people's problems, to appropriate accordingly. When you are appropriating the budget, you appropriate according to need. If people are saying that, no, you have shifted your priorities, you have shifted from what you are supposed to be appropriating for, your priorities are no longer commensurate to what the public is demanding. That's why you should now come back and say, wait a minute, this might be true. Because what people are saying and what Parliament, none of these people in the Parliament or in the government are educating their children in public schools. None of them is going to public hospitals. None of them is concerned because they are driving Guzzlers, 4x4 cars, they are driving the latest cars on the market. They don't feel the potholes. They don't feel it. They have lead cars. They have enough security. They don't feel the insecurity. They don't feel like there is a problem because you are driving off people off the road. So if you are still comfortable in your comfort, it is going to be hard for you to be forced to listen to people who are in the discomfort. And the point here, what I want us to drive at is a team, as you call me off the microphone.
My producer Stephen is signaling that it's time for us to go into a break.
The issue is, one, get out of your comfort. Listen to those who are uncomfortable. And the call they are saying, this is what you are using for your comfort, is meant to take out everyone from the discomfort to the comfort you are at. Don't enjoy alone.
Thank you very much. Let's go into a break and then we'll come back and continue with this discussion. Welcome back from the break. You're still tuned to VPN here on 93.3 KFM. We're discussing how to better approach our governance challenges as a country. And I have with me my guests, Herbert Anderson Burora, anti-corruption activist, is a team leader of the NRM-IR. Herbert, you'll share with us a little bit about what your organization is doing. He's also a former Deputy Resident City Commissioner for Rubaga Division. And I'm also proud to be having Dr. Sylvia Namubiru Mukasa, who is the CEO, Legal Aid Service Providers Network. She's also a former magistrate. My other guest, I hope he will be making it here. He seems to be pretty held up. And before we went into the break, we were hearing from Herbert. Herbert, I think what I got from you is that what stands out for me as a theme is servant leadership from your submission. Having leaders who hold positions not because of the privileges that those positions come with or the perks that they come with, but rather because they are putting the interests and the well-being of the people they lead ahead of their own interests. Sylvia, let me get back to you. When you look at today's the Saturday Monitor, the focus basically is also on this conversation we're having. The front page says judiciary on trial, and it basically looks back at what has happened throughout the week, the protests, how it was organized, the arrests, and all these defective charge sheets that have been produced. Do you actually agree that the judiciary is on test, is being tested by this protest?
Yes, to a greater extent. You see, I followed my brother's submissions, and he raises really pertinent issues of standing in the positions that have been entrusted to us by the people. So when you look at the judiciary and the Article 126 that establishes the judiciary, it says judicial power is derived from people and shall be exercised in accordance to the norms and aspirations of the people. So judicial authority, yes, you receive the judicial instruments, but you are obliged to exercise impartiality. You are obliged to be to exercise with honesty, and you are obliged to be alive to the needs and aspirations of the people. So the needs and aspirations of the people in this case is poor governance, abuse of resources or wastage of resources,
yes.
And the judiciary is not living in a different planet. Actually, judiciary itself has challenges because many of there are always perceptions of corruption, where people say it's very difficult to access justice if you don't have money, where they say there are tendencies of corruption and bribery within the judiciary. So when the judiciary now receives these young people or the citizens that are agitating for a change in leadership styles, for a change in the way resources are being utilized, it is expected that they have to be contextualized and be able to appreciate what are the people saying. These people who are being brought before us, why are they being brought before us? And what are we supposed to do as the judiciary? How have they been brought before us? What role are we supposed to play? Because in a way, you were standing there and you are in the middle, you are the arbiter. Imagine a referee who is overseeing a wrestling game, or a referee who is overseeing a football match, and you are able to stand impartial and be able to guide the match to end well without any casualties, to end well when there is a winner. So when you descend into the arena, for example, and you begin to act like them that are not doing the right thing, then you come on trial. So the judiciary is under trial in a way that they are supposed to safeguard and protect the rights of the people, because judiciary knows their procedural rights. They have to ensure that the charges under which these people are being charged are the right charges. They need to exercise the rights of the suspects. We are not saying that they have to pronounce them innocent. No. They are supposed to perform their function of refereeing. So they are on trial, for instance, when these young people, and remember, some of these young people are juveniles. Some of them are below the age of 18. So when they are brought before them, they are supposed to apply the procedural aspects of these matters. If they are entitled for bail, they apply for bail and release them. They have to look at the charge sheet. If the charge sheet is defective, then they should be able to advise the prosecution that we cannot remand these particular individuals in such defective charges. But also, the kind of bail conditions they set up, we've already heard many of these young people cannot work. They don't have employment. Many of them cannot afford the cash bail. So they are supposed to weigh all those options and circumstances and be able to grant reasonable terms of bail or bond that these people are deserving. But also they are supposed to guide the law enforcement agents in a way, in the decisions they make and in the orders. But like any other institution, as we have seen, Parliament is challenged. As we've seen, the law enforcement agents are challenged. In every situation, we always find those pockets. We cannot say that this is the position of the judiciary. And I think we have to be clear on that. Judiciary also employs individuals that come from the same society where we are having moral related issues, that come from the society where we have political connotations and aspirations. So when the judiciary employs, or they are actually processed by the Judicial Service Commission and given over to the judiciary, they give them some of them who are good and some of them who are incompetent.
Basically what society has produced.
Yes. They give them those that have biases, and these people come to administer justice. Some of them actually don't know what to do. Because, seriously speaking, you may find that the judicial officers handling some of these cases at the lowest cost, they have this fear, they are timid, they even don't know that they have to have that independence that comes with their position, and they don't know that they actually hold an office where they are supposed to be accountable. Independence of the judiciary does not mean you are not accountable. So then, the pressure that is exerted from the law enforcement tend to make them timid, and they fail to do the right thing. So because
sorry, before you go in there, Stephen has just sent me something on WhatsApp. You've talked about, we've talked about the defective charge sheet, but then he said another comedian, Rain. If you've been following, Rain was also picked from his home.
Rain.
He was charged for attempt to commit hate speech. Like, how do you know I am going to say something that is considered hateful?
Exactly. How? What have I said that makes
I haven't said it, but you're playing psychic and reading my mind, and now you know that I am actually going to.
Those are, of course, kind of arbitrary arrests and what we would call trampled up charges. They get any charge to just make you get out of the what, or take away your liberty. It is intentional, done definitely to take away your liberty. And as a result, because you were a person who cannot decide for yourself at that time, you are at the mercy of the law enforcement agencies, and by the time the system has processed you, damage has already been caused. But to take you back to what I was saying, I was speaking about not looking at the judiciary as an institution that, this judiciary has sided either with executive, or has sided with the parliament, or has decided with the police and law enforcement. And I was distinguishing the judiciary individuals from the institution.
Yes.
Because the institution's position is that we are independent. And indeed, the judiciary has the administration of the Justice Act that spells out what they are supposed to be doing. Now, these elements these pockets, these insensitive, some of them who are judicial officers, these people who are not having servant leadership that we have talked about in their respective positions, they are insensitive to the extent that they think they have to dance to the tune of what the law enforcement officers are doing or the police is doing. And they have this timidness to say, I shouldn't be seen the one to be releasing these people. So they fail to appreciate that they are the arbiters and that they are independent and that the Constitution gives them the mandate to do the right thing, irrespective, and to correct what either the law enforcement officers are not doing right, because they are supposed to correct them. And so when we continue to have this kind of people, then they make the judiciary be on trial. And now the responsibility gets back to the management and the leadership of judiciary to put this right by guiding the judicial officers on the decorum of court, on what they are supposed to do, the safeguarding rights, their mandate to act impartially and not partially, to avoid biases, but also to look to the public good, because there is always that public good. These young people that are standing up are showing we are fed up. This corruption is getting to our neck. We don't have employment. We don't have service delivery. The education has gone down. The hospitals, as he has mentioned, the other day I was coming from up country and we met people from Lago Hospital, the government hospital, going to get water. By the time that the main hospital have no water, what do you think is going on? They were carrying jerrycans.
Say that again. Which people were carrying jerrycans?
We saw people carrying jerrycans from the government hospital to go and fetch water. So that shows you that water had run down. So all those are issues. We came across roads. The roads, for example, in the from Karuma to Pakwach. Of course, they are working on it, but it speaks to the work that was done, because that road was not done long time ago.
Yeah.
So when you look at the local administration, because we are in local administration, you could see some good local administration and they are managing resources well, like Hoima and the kind of structures they have. Then you get to others and you see really things run down. Police themselves, in this program that we're working on, they were saying we don't have resources to investigate cases, and the public was saying we have to find money to give to police to go and investigate cases of GBV and ETC. If we don't, then these cases, the witnesses will lose interest and they will not come. And indeed, police was admitting that we don't have resources. But then actually the question I was asking police then, I said, but why is it that police has resources to stop riots immediately and every apparatus comes out and we don't have resources to keep law and order? So our priorities are not there. And so when you are living in Uganda, irrespective that you are either appointed, you are a judicial officer, whether you are a member of parliament, whether you are privileged, there is still cause to worry. And when there are others who come out to say we are agitated, the IGG is not working as we expect. The State House anti-corruption is not working as we expect. Parliament itself, that is supposed to pass legislations that are intended to deter and detect and stop corruption and embezzlement, they are also corrupt. Apparently the system itself is corrupt, and we are saying we are coming to you to agitate, to tell you do the right thing.
Yes,
do the right thing. And when your children come to tell you, and there is a saying in Uganda which says, so even the one you have produced can drum and you dance. So by the time our children come and say, dear parents, members of parliament, we want to tell you that we are fed up. We don't have employment. We cannot access the services that we have to access. And we know that you are participating in this routing of this country. And we know that you're not taking decisions, the right decision. We want to tell you to let Sante begin from this legislative house. And then you say, don't come. And then you arrest them brutally. And then you subject them to this sexual violence that we are hearing about. Of course, it's alleged. And then you dehumanize them, and these are your children. Because ideally, okay, if it was your fellow brothers and sisters same age, you would say, okay, maybe these are adults. But these are your children. So if you, the police officers enforcing law, you can't even have empathy for these children of yours and listen to them, then it means as a country, we need to go back to the drawing board and do what we would call a keen a keen revelation of who we are as a country. What are our values? Where have we gone wrong? Where is our responsible points, each one of us? What are we doing right and what are we not doing right? Individual accountability comes in our respective spaces. Individual accountability, and we each have to play a role.
Thank you, Sylvia.
Yes.
Herbert, when you look at, like I mentioned earlier when I was opening this discussion, the president has always talked about, we're going to crush the corrupt. We have a zero tolerance policy to corruption as the NRM, and he has executive powers to basically take action as and when he pleases. We see, of course, from the time he spoke about, going after the corrupt, when he even said there's a syndicate in the Ministry of Finance and Parliament and so on, then suddenly we see MPs being picked up. They are currently on remand, a number of them. We hear many more could still be picked up in the weeks or months ahead. Do you think he's trying at least to fight corruption? Or, I mean, what is your reading when you see what he says and his actions? And also in relation to the recent protest, we see, he talks about fighting corruption, but then now these young people go to the streets to fight the very same thing he's against, and we see the kind of military prowess exhibited by the state to basically say, look, you cannot go any further. And the narratives that are coming up, like, no, you're being funded. What do you read? What is your reading of this kinds of utterances and actions by the president?
I think what now we need to come out clear and do, most especially some of us who have openly came up and made a decision. Yesterday I said, for man to live, you must face two things: belief and death. So what you believe in leads to how you die, or what leads to your death. At the moment, the president, I think, is in a corner whereby they are now threatening him using the foreign funding card through providing wrong intelligence to him. I want to assure those who are listening, and also the president, the recent these protests are not meant to distract, destroy, or even attack any other form, as they are saying that these people might end up leading to maybe an unrest or some sort of overthrowing a government. These are not part of that arrangement. And there is no discussion to that regard, as they are trying to allege using the security reports, the wrong intelligence they are providing, now trying to malign and malice these young people that they are foreign funded. And anyway, let me ask you, Atim, if we have tried to address these issues locally and they have not been addressed, and there is a foreigner, for example, trying to say, young people, you need to fight corruption, you are going to give someone an advantage to take advantage of that because it is imminent now. It is important. You see, if you are sinking in a lake, or in a lake, for example, anything you can tag on, even if it is a serpent, even if it is a snake, you can think later
that was a snake.
That it was a snake.
But at that time, it's your savior.
But that time it's your savior. You are trying to, at least you can have another minute to live. I can tell you're scared. And that's how scary it is. That the moment you start breeding these grounds, they will get you more and more and more problems. Let me tell you, if you marketed that security, you brought all machineries of arms, of mean-looking men with different gears that are scary, and still people come. That should tell you that there is a problem. If they still come, more will come. At the moment you have 100 in prison, how many more do you want to have? And how many more? Because now...
And with already stressed prison.
Yeah.
Congested.
That the prison has already said so. I don't want now to go back into other issues. But how many more are you willing to arrest? How many more are you going to put aside all the backlog we have in court and start now prosecuting political and the corruption crusaders? You need to look forward. The intention of intelligence is to detect any action, to detect any situation. We are going into this. Intelligence has nothing to do with lies, has nothing to do with protectionism. It has to do with reality. If the intelligence they are giving the president now isn't realistic, and it is the reason we have 100 young people in prison, it means we are going to have 10,000. These 100 have relatives. So now in courts, you are going to produce 100 young people with about 5 relatives coming in to rescue, with about other 100 or maybe 10 coming in, friends, with their lawyers. So now you assume that at every court you are going to have, every prisoner you are going to bring has about 20 people. 20 people times 100. How many are those? So now you are recruiting. You are going to bring them. Tomorrow you deny them bail. These people are going also to get angry. And so now you are being unfair to our people. They are going to join the demonstrations.
That's about 2,000 people.
So you have about 2,000 people. In the next day, you are going to have about 4,000 because they keep doubling, if not tripling. And actually, the more you do that, the more you encourage others. So intelligence, if people doing intelligence are intelligent as they are supposed to be, they should be able to foresee this. They should be able to detect that what you are doing now has a ripple effect, not only to the security, but also to the economy. You get it? They have an issue to do with you are putting the justice system, as you said. Now the justice system has to offer, has to be just to either sides. Not only to the one who is in prison, but also the state has to get justice. It has also its angle of prosecution. So who is the justice system going to favor? I want to call them unlawful, because you see someone is attempting to commit hate speech. Really?
What will you use as the evidence?
The state attorney really should be realistic in this. They have gone to law school. They are acting in public interest. We are in the age of information. We are in the age of media. We are in the age whereby now people study online. Several events. What kind of precedents are you setting as a state attorney?
By sanctioning
such a file. So we have so much to deal with, and in dealing, as I wind up just in a second,
no problem.
As we deal with this issue of demonstration, let me tell you, you are going to need not just emotions, as it is being portrayed. Yes, it happened in Kenya, so many things happened. But don't assume it's the same thing happening in Uganda. It can only happen if you instigate yourself, like the way you are handling it. Parliament, to end to climax on this, Parliament should not attempt to make people angry more. The only sitting we can now find now as in response would be a sitting to acknowledge what the public is saying. The leadership of Parliament, the Speaker of Parliament, to come up and say, we are setting aside everything. What do you say? What are you saying? Make changes in the parliamentary leadership. That is one. 2, make sure that you undo some of the appropriations you have done to suit the public demand. These are the things you should be asking the public to. But if you say we are going to bring all the military was meant for the enemy. These young people are not enemies of Uganda. These are your grandchildren.
You don't use a gun.
These are your children.
Grandchild.
The political affiliations aside, they are your grandchildren. They are your children. They are fighting to make sure that they have social services equitable. They are saying now, like I am telling you, as I alluded earlier, it does not make sense for you to be comfortable. This Uganda is enough for all of us. The prosperity, the wealth available is enough for all of us. If we start sending a brother away, you send a team away, at the end of the way, that day, even what you have on your plate will rot.
Thanks a lot, Herbert. We shall be taking a break, and then we'll come back and look at the demands that are being made by the young young protesters who are on the streets. And we'll be finding out how realistic they are in shaping a better Uganda when it comes to good governance and so on. This is right. This is still VPN here on 93.3 KFM. We are looking at better ways to approach our governance challenges as a country. And I have with me Herbert Anderson Burora. He's an anti-corruption activist. He's a team lead of the NRM-IR, a pressure group. He's also former Deputy Resident City Commissioner for Rubaga Division. Also with me in the studio is Dr. Sylvia Namubiru Mukasa, CEO, Legal Aid Service Providers Network. She's also a former magistrate. We were talking about the test to the judiciary, how this protests is actually testing our judiciary and how they handle issues. Now, we have more than 100 people arrested so far. The number could go high. We don't know what the coming week will actually bring. Should there be more protests or more gatherings on corruption-related matters? You never know, because I know there was a group that was picked from Ntinda. They were actually having in a hotel a workshop on anti-corruption, and then you're going to yes, it happened. I think a few days ago.
It's getting far.
So you're having 100 people already, and these are young people, unemployed. They don't have money. They also come from struggling families, which have other competing priorities and so on and needs. So the issue, I know online there are attempts, there are efforts being made to like pool funds to actually help with bail. We don't know how much bail will be set on Tuesday next week. But if, for example, it is cash bail and most of them fail to raise whatever amount is set, how fair then would you say the justice system is?
Okay. The decision to grant or not to grant bail is a discretionary decision, but also we know that everyone charged with a criminal offense is innocent until proved guilty. So bail is one of the safeguards to ensure that the person is processed through the justice system without really violating their rights to fairness and fairness and speedy trial. On the side of us, the lawyers, I must commend the Law Society of Uganda, the President, Undo, and team, mobilized the Legal Aid Service Provider, Legal Aid Project, and other lawyers to go immediately and provide what we call legal rapid response. Last minute also, we mobilized the lawyers to go. FIDA and many more pro bono, women for pro bono. So the civil society organizations have done their best to go to courts and ensure that the persons are released. But before these persons are released, there are conditions that are expected to be in place. Because whereas, yes, we are saying they have a right to bail, but also court follows certain conditions. And so one, a person has to have a fixed place of abode. A person has to have sureties, and these sureties have to be substantial. They are either the parents, and now this is where I call upon all the parents of these young people to go to court, not to shy away, because they are the best persons that can be handed over their children. Then you have to have, maybe if you're in employment, some letter of recommendation and employment, and then at times the court may grant cash bail or non-cash bail. But most often we've seen courts granting cash bail. But also we need to note that many of these people that were part of these protests are not employed. They are young people. Some of them are students. So you don't expect them to raise money to the tune of 500. That means that money now is being mobilized by well-wishers, or it is being mobilized by their parents. And remember, this money is meant to come from your own pockets, where you feel it is hurting, to make sure that you go back and you attend to your case until you were discharged, or until you are acquitted, or until you are convicted. And thereafter you apply to get back this money. So this money is like a security to court. And so if I have not paid this money and I'm a young person, definitely it is unlikely that I'm going to even feel it. I will definitely abscond. So I would think that the court will use their discretion and look at other conditions. If these young people have their parents and they are ready to come and stand surety, why grant cash bail? Because grant cash bail, it will turn out to be like you have not granted bail. Many of them may fail and they remain under incarceration. So the fairness of it all is to apply the discretion of the judicial power, but judiciously, case by case. Look at the context of these young people and case by case of those 100 that are going to apply. Though some may be deserving to get cash court bond, not cash bail. So don't say all of you 500 when my circumstances cannot enable me to even raise 500. So when we're talking about justice should not only be done, but should be seen to be done in this matter. And how do you see it in the way as the judicial officer conducts themselves during the proceedings, how they listen on case by case as the lawyers submit, and how they make decisions that are fair and just under the circumstances, well knowing that these suspects, allegedly suspects, are innocent of these what we call the charges that have been brought before them until the prosecution has brought sufficient evidence that requires them to be under incarceration. So let us safeguard, and I hope that the judicial officers will be judicious and that they will safeguard the rights of these young people, bearing in mind that they are going there as protesters or whatever charges they have been given them, but in prisons they are associating with already the hardcore that are there. They are associating with conditions that are not good. In prison we hear there are some of them who are sodomized by fellow inmates. We've already heard in police custody, some of them apparently, I can't even confirm it because with law you really speak from facts, but the allegation of sexual abuse. So these young people come, I'm a student, I've never been exposed to those kind of violence, and I'm agitating to change my country, and then I end up being sodomized because a decision was not taken to release me on bail. And as a result, I tend to get more worse. Psychological issues arise, and as a result, you are creating more monsters. Sure. And the problem is being expounded. So when you are judicial officers, all those eyes and aspects in you should be alive. Well knowing that this person they are calling a student of Mackay College, having participated in a riot or in a protest and charged with being disorderly, I have in mind that this is a student. If I'm a judicial officer, I cannot even allow to remand. Because I know when I remand, this student is going to come out worse than what he is. I'll just find a way. There is always reasons and other way of punishing them. For example, if they are found guilty, there's community service. Don't allow them to divert alternatives to imprisonment. Divert, and you can only begin to divert and safeguard at the time of the pre-trial. Thank you.
You're welcome. So let's take a look at the demands that these young protesters have made. The 7 demands. One, they want the Speaker of Parliament, Anita Among, to resign from her position as Speaker of Uganda's Parliament. They want the 4 backbench commissioners to resign. That's demand number 2. They want a reduction in the size of, in the number of members of parliament. They want the MPs involved in any corruption scandal to resign as investigations go on. They also want an audit into the lifestyles of all members of parliament, and they want these findings to be publicized. They want salaries and allowances of all members of parliament cut down to 3 million shillings. And number 7 is to allow Ugandans to continuously exercise their democratic right to peacefully assemble without blockage.
Okay. I think their calls are noble, but I want to touch one by one. We talk about the issue of no one should be condemned without a right to a fair hearing and natural justice principles. Of course, as young people, through their pressure, they are demanding the speaker to resign. But the speaker also needs justice. Yes, we don't want to condemn the speaker unheard. However, the speaker has to create a conducive environment for her to be heard. You see, for instance, when they come and they are holding their placards and they're saying, we are coming to the parliament and we want you to resign. If the speaker gives them audience and listen to them and gives his story, then they are able to listen. So there is that natural justice. But not to just shut them out completely and say, you can't come, we shall use the military, we shall use the police, and you will not come. So the call is there, but it does not mean that when they call the speaker to resign, the speaker resigns immediately, because there are procedures for even calling back the speaker from the seat. So the natural justice has to apply. Reduction of numbers of parliament. This has been a call by many, and indeed in other jurisdictions. Why do we have all these members of parliament? They all come with the RSC, the former RSC was talking about the bodyguards, the cars, the etc., the salary. So when you look at our country and our economy, you ask yourselves, can we sustain such a robust number of members of parliament? So in this one, this requires law reform, because we need to reduce the numbers. So they need to that. MPs involved in corruption should also resign. Again, that is also another thing. MPs have a procedure on how they are recalled from parliament, but they should also be given the opportunity to natural justice, to be heard. No one should be condemned and heard. But of course, as public, they assume that when they exert pressure, then the avenues to be heard and natural justice to apply will apply. Lifestyle audit. I think even the IGG, in one of the National Corruption Day, has, even in presence of His Excellency the President, has called for lifestyle audit. And indeed, this is the best way to go. Lifestyle audit. People living beyond their income. You know, you are earning 20 million, but you are living like a business tycoon who is earning trillions of shillings. You have apartments, you have, primitive amassment of wealth is what the leaders in Uganda are. They have 5 cars in parking in the home, and every child has a car that takes them to school, while they are living in abject poverty surroundings. So when you begin to audit the lifestyle, then you make them accountable. I am accountable. Before I buy a billion car, I have to think through in my accountability to government when I file my assets and whatever returns. They're going to ask you this question. Then this lifestyle audit should come with assets recovery law. You know, that the Parliament of Uganda should pass the assets recovery, and once someone's lifestyle is audited and they find that they have amassed wealth that is not accountable for, then the government recovers. It is the only way, by the way. Taking them and filling the prisons is not going to change them. They go to prison, they serve their 5 years, they serve their 2 years, they come and they find their wealth. They continue. While they are in prison, they have agents managing their property, they have managers managing their property. They are losing nothing, and even they'll be treated and given VIP treatment in prisons because they cannot afford to do that. So lifestyle and then assets recovery becomes an issue. Of course, reduction of allowance. Why would even Parliament be the one to prescribe the allowances and salaries they get? You know, there has never been fairness. So these calls are valid, and they are meant to make us better in governance and be more accountable. But maybe after listening to them, then the reaction should be like Kenya did. When you listen, act. Because this is unprecedented and it is unlikely to stop. The people of Uganda speaking, and they are the voters. Because we don't know what is going to happen in 2026. So if I were a member of Parliament, and I want to thank some members of Parliament who have been on the floor. There's one from Yumbe. He called seriously to the Speaker. He's the only vocal MP I have seen speak out without fear or favor, and calling upon the Speaker and the Parliament to say, yes, there is corruption. Let's not shy away from it. Let us discuss it. Let us prescribe solutions. And once they become accountable and transparent, the people will tone down and they say, our leaders are listening.
Yeah, we've actually had Alioni here some time back, and we'll still have him again. Yes. He's working with Sechikuba, actually. He's been working with to get the
history will judge them well. History will judge them well.
So, how about let's come to you. We've seen the president's stance on this protest. Clearly, he says from all his utterances, he does not want any more of this developments unfolding. But do you think the young people are going to be relentless in their pursuit for a just, corrupt-free Uganda? And do you think they're going to continue to put pressure to actually have these grievances and issues addressed?
You see, I don't know how politely I can say this, but I want to be realistic. And I hope I am not quoted out of proportion, but I want to say it as it is. I think the president also needs to be realistic and give an ear to those they have already condemned. I am saying that they are already condemned because they have been judged before they have even done anything. And the president should also know that he's the president of the people of Uganda, all of them, whether they ideologically agree or disagree, whether they are in the same agreement of what is taking place or not. He needs to also understand that it's his responsibility to lead all Ugandans and listen to them and address them all accordingly. And saying that he doesn't want this anymore actually will cause more problems, because also Ugandans are saying we no longer want corruption. So the clash of the two will make either of them misunderstood. And I don't think in this it's the president to be misunderstood. Of recent, as I told you, that through wrong intelligence information provided to him, they have made him to be the spokesperson and the shield of the corrupt.
Exactly.
And I think that is wrong. I don't think it's right. He should address issues as they come, not as they are alleged to be. You were talking about bail, you were talking about what? First of all, I think what the state needs to do, government and the judiciary, is to come to the reality that all the cases in court have no monetary value. They have nothing to replace that they are trying to do. It is on the failure of the wrong intelligence provided that state lost resources in the deployment. None of the protesters beat anyone on the road. At least we have not seen that. None of the protesters blocked anyone from doing their businesses. We have not seen that. They have not even defaced anything. Not even a leaf from the plants of KCC in town. None of them has been affected. So the bond or the bail money here, I don't think would be an issue. If indeed we are all fighting the same, if we are indeed all we are shooting in the same direction but using different tactics, the president might have chosen to use the carrot, the public has chosen to use the stick. We are all addressing the issues that are affecting all of us. So in this case, I don't think any young person in prison, the 100 of them in prison, should be even subjected to bail money in this case. In any way, I was away when the report on, either I was away or I was on the run when the report, the statistics, the census report was being, but it speaks a lot on the statistics of the young people, the economy of this country, the economic and superstructure of the economy of this country. I think all of those things were addressed because they were being asked during the census. So subjecting these young people to bail money, to sureties as it is said, what do you want them to come back to do? What are you prosecuting? That they did what? They walked? How many Ugandans walked? That they asked someone to resign? That's what you're going to prosecute? I think here, court should just give them caution. They should just caution them
They can't caution them unless they've pleaded guilty.
Yeah.
Yes, caution is a form of.
Let me
also
tell you this, and I think people listening in, if intelligence is listening, they should listen to me carefully. They should listen to me carefully. I am speaking, and they should get a message from what I am speaking. Whether they plead guilty or not, the idea of arresting is wrong. That is one. 2, if you want to address the issue of foreign funding and the issue of demonstrators,
Mr. Blora, the DPP should withdraw the charges.
No, you see, the DPP also is under coercion.
No, what I'm saying procedurally, because now already
you are talking illegality, me I am talking politics. There is nothing illegal in this. I am addressing the politics. If you want to address the politics legally, you are going to be overwhelmed. If you want to address the
maybe
issue,
what I want to clarify is once the case is registered in court, whether it is politically motivated, it is already a case in court. So they need to, what I was trying to tell him, not to say that what he's saying is wrong, but to tell him the best way to do it would be withdraw charges.
my sister, I am addressing the politics. And I am a politician with experience. I have practiced. I still practice.
Well,
I have
but you see, I think when I go back to what Sylvia had said earlier about the independence of the judiciary and the fact that the law provides for it to be independent. Yes, the politics, we are not blinded to the fact that there is politics. The political context within which the judiciary finds itself. But in principle, I agree with what I think
she's
that's
right.
what she's saying. In
She's
principle,
right.
there are things that should be done on principle.
Yes.
But you can proceed.
I agree. I am not saying that I disagree with her. But I am trying to show you all that this case has 99% to do with the politics other than the law.
Yes.
We shall come here another time to address issues of the law.
Okay.
Law is sometimes political.
Yeah, sometimes. But in this case, it's another thing.
Yeah.
So the grounds in this, the president should come back to reality, as he said that even I saw. Let them not put our president into contention that now you have to question each and everything he has to say. I am speaking this because the president is not like Anderson, that I am on ground. He's the president who feeds through different sources of intelligence, economic, social, political, criminal, everything. He's fed. He's fed into all this. And if the feeders have interest somewhere, it is possible that they can easily give him wrong information to address their interest.
Exactly.
And in this case, I am explicitly saying that there are some feeders who are compromised in the feeding of the president. And this should stop. The feeders who are giving him wrong information, who are feeding the country, the infrastructure of the country with wrong information. You can address the issue of foreign funding separately. That has to do with diplomacy. That has to do because if you have evidence, you know the sources, you know the participants, those can be addressed. But the issue of corruption, I'm saying, it has a trail. You don't have to be coerced. You don't have to be trained. You don't have to be taken through a process to be angered that we lose 10 trillions per financial year. You don't have to be angered. I had a discussion with my wife for all this we are starting and the decision for my resignation from work. We had a bitter discussion and she was asking, why are you doing this? I was trying to explain to her. And so we sometimes, at some point, we had a discussion about Mulago. I am sorry to say this, but I will say it. And I want all Ugandans to have a meet of the mind. So at some point we discussed issues to do with the Mulago and the clinics around Mulago. So I asked her, how does it come that when you go to Lubaga Hospital, You don't have private clinics around the hospital.
Rubaga, Zambia, Chibuli.
Yes, how come? You don't have these clinics mushrooming every day, almost taking all the business spaces around? How come? But how come when you go to Mulago, a nurse, a doctor knows where to get each and every medicine you need, with the prescription of where to go and who to buy from? That to the extent that if you go and buy the same medicine from a different clinic, it is denied. And she consented to that. They said, this issue will affect me tomorrow. I don't have the privilege of others. When I am sick, my last remedy is the national referral.
True.
If I have a visa in my passport, either I have been paid for, or someone has contributed, or it has been an initiative of government. I cannot afford a ticket, a luxury ticket. For that information, individually, for example, I have no options that I can go to a private hospital and I afford. I was watching Chirudu the other day when they are doing some surgeries, sijui of what, and they said in Chirudu it is for free. But when you go to a private hospital, it is 3 million to get that operation, that surgery. 3 million. I was watching Chirudu. But now, if that machine or the equipment in Chirudu are broken and they are not serviced, how many people can afford the 3 million shillings?
Actually, speaking about Chirudu, I think some months ago, was it around December, where there were news reports of some power cuts that actually affected oxygen supply, and there were children in incubators, and some of them lost their lives.
Exactly.
It was really, really sad.
It's sad.
Was it captured?
It wasn't the news.
So
I remember reading it
instead
somewhere.
of providing these budgets for government officials for spending, for giving out, Uroda has come where you're basa for maybe 1 million, instead of appropriating in that regard, why don't we rethink? Let me tell you, team, every end of tenure, we buy someone can do for me the month, but I think our phones will somehow have error. We buy 529 MPs cars worth 200 millions. Someone can do the math for me. Even if we committed that this money, for example, equips hospitals, we bring to standard existing referral hospitals. The Ministry of Health has tried its best, but you see that the demand is still there. You appropriate, you legislate, even the poverty we are talking about.
There's some questions actually here that are coming in for you. There's a section of the public who are listening to you and are also amazed at the person you've become, looking at the position you were holding previously, working for the government, and now you are a critic of the government. Well, before that you were a critic of the government, joined the government, and now you're a critic. So why has it taken you all this time to actually turn around and actually point fingers at the government?
Actually,
secondly,
let me take one by one.
Answer that.
Let me take one by one. Let me tell you this. When I started working in government, ask my colleagues, first of all, does the position I hold have a bearing on policy making? Certainly not. I am just an implementer of what is in existence. But ask my colleagues internally in our internal discussions,
what your position
my
was.
position, what my position has been. I have been critical of some of the decisions. I have been a crusader of speaking to our fellow politicians. You go to Rubaga where I have been. My position has been always talk to people. Instead of arresting, tear gassing and what, talk to these people. If they need spaces, let's create spaces. I can come in public and say something because it is a position and that is my role. And you know that when I came publicly to say this, I was accused of being an activist in government. You remember that? The PS actually accused me of being an activist, that I am not speaking what I have been told to speak. So that should inform you that actually, by the time I chose to stand my ground, I was already suffocated. You get my point? So there is nothing like shifting or this. No, my position has always been, let's be frugal, let's respect, let's respond. Let's make sure that whatever we are doing, it is not self-seeking, it's not self-wishing, it is not the comfort. At him, I had my job, I had the salary, I had friends, I could not go hungry, I could call someone because of the position I have, and I have. Right now, I cannot even call some people and they pick my calls.
Do they even call to check on you to see how you're doing?
No, not at all. Just because they think by me saying that I disagree on this point, I am at government, I am at NRM, I am NRM 442. The 10 principles of the 10-point programs of the NRA were all pro-people. The 4 principles of the NRM: democracy, Pan-Africanism, patriotism, and what is the 4th? They are all centered on pro-people. None of them can exist where there is corruption. Corruption is like fire and butter. Put the two together, one will smelt the other, one will melt the other to nothing.
More dangerous.
Corruption.
No, fire and the...
Okay.
So corruption is fire.
How about then
So,
the second question? You speak boldly about corruption, even after spending weeks in prison. You have a case going on. How safe do you feel? Generally, do you feel safe? I mean, there's freedom of speech and all that, but don't you feel? Do you find yourself in an environment of fear after everything you've gone through?
Well, I have been forced to fear. But I have failed to adhere to that kind of force. At him, if there is no one in prison for this, just know there is a problem. If there is no one in prison for calling for such insanity to order, just know there is a problem. There is no reason for me to live in an environment where I cannot enjoy myself, in an environment where I am kinda living in a warlord area. You get it? I have no reason to live. Let me die if it's to die. As we speak, let me tell you this, my life is under threat because paramilitary police has even gone on to confiscate my personal security tools. But this cannot stop me from saying that we need to stop this madness.
That is okay. But do you feel you have the energy and the zeal and the passion to continue pushing for basically having the right thing done, fighting corruption, fighting the ills of society, or do you sometimes get to a point where you feel like, I think I just have to give up?
Well, you give up, but I told you earlier, not all people compromise their beliefs. That is one. I am this person who believes that what I believe in should lead to my death.
Oh, Jesus.
You have to die for something. You rather die for something
other than compromising and I die an unknown death. You get it? That is one. Two, we all have different callings. You are a journalist and you have done it well. In the realm of journalists, I think if your name doesn't loom high, something is wrong. That is what you have chosen to do. My calling is one. Can we have spaces equitable for all of us? That is, can we share this small prosperity available?
It's enough.
It's enough for all of us. More than enough.
Let's take a break. We need to go into a commercial break and then we'll come back and continue with this.
VPN.
Welcome back from the break. We're still having this interesting discussion. How do we approach our governance challenges better? How do we confront the demons that we're actually battling or grappling with as a country. How about before we went into the break, you were actually talking about the parliamentary police and basically how they are getting involved in handling cases. Okay, we're back on now. I think we hadn't yet gone back fully. So we were talking about still the issue of corruption, and we have a phone call. Okay, let's proceed. Sylvia, I want to bring this back to you. What is the jurisdiction of the parliamentary police? Because Herbert stays in a very different direction, very far from Parliament, and ideally, if he has any case, it should be the police within his jurisdiction handling issues, whether it's of a criminal nature or civil or whatever. Why must it be parliamentary police getting involved and following him around as if there is no police where he stays?
Okay. Very interesting that this issue also comes up. I think police has something to clarify to the public, because from the knowledge and experience I know is that there is always a place where there is a cause of action, and there is always where that person resides. The police has a responsibility to manage such a case where the person resides. So the parliamentary police coming into play to arrest someone from a different jurisdiction raises questions, because the parliament operates within this prescript of parliament, and that is where we expected that if a person who is arrested comes into parliament and either makes whatever statement they make or does what they would call a crime, then that's when parliamentary police comes in and arrests and processes the arraignment before court. But this one is a little bit interesting, and I hope it is not stepping out of boundaries, because it looks like parliamentary police is stepping out of boundaries to handle the matter outside the other police jurisdiction. So, however, that would require more explanation, because within themselves they know how to deploy and what to deploy. So police should be able to answer this to the public, since it is being raised.
What I also would like you to weigh on from a legal point of view, would this be tantamount to abuse of power if someone is
and
using
impunity?
The police?
Because I think there is abuse of power and stepping boundaries. Abuse of power in terms of who is instructing you to arrest.
Exactly.
On whose instructions are you arresting this suspect, without necessarily mentioning names? Who are you acting for as police? Who complained? Where was the complaint raised? So that is the starting point. Who received the complaint? Because when the police receive the complaint, then they either refer and say, go to the other place. That is where either the case arose, and that's where the crime was committed. So you will refer the complainant to that place. And
because if someone snatches my phone right now, I can't go to Parliament and say, okay, Parliament.
You can't go to Parliament and they handle you, they refer you, and they'll tell you to come back here to the police that is nearest to you to receive the complaint. It is the police nearest to you that refer you to either the CPS for further management,
depending on how big the case
or
is.
CID Chibuli. So the Criminal Investigation Department of Police should be able to clarify, because these questions are being asked. Why parliamentary police arresting, in this case, the suspect?
Well, Stephen tells me there are some people who want to make phone calls, and we have actually very few minutes to go. But let me read the lines quickly, and in case you want to be a part of the conversation, please do join us. 0393 933 933, 0393 262 933, 0393 262 934. You could also reach us on 0393 266 933, 0701 933 934, or 0751 933 900. We have a caller.
You're live at the Busega.
Hello?
Yes, you're live at the Busega.
Is this Juma?
Yes, I am.
Yes, good morning, Juma.
Morning to you, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you for serving the nation.
Thank you.
My introduction will go like this. Faisal and the rest of the team should be unconditionally released. Then my point, police of Uganda, their role or their mandate to keep law and order. But nowadays, it's like the law, they have rubbed it off. Now they are keeping order. Humanity have to come on board. Faith. This protest was so peaceful. They are going to be based on what circumstances. And that arrest was made over what? There are people who deserve to be in jail, but not these protesters who were going in peaceful demonstrations, how they are satisfied with the service deliveries of this current regime. President himself is already 40 in power. Up to how long can the public be listening and watching our money are being swindled, our money are being hijacked, our money has been misused, abuses of offices? You report to police, you come back home, the state is nullified. You go to RDC also behave like RPC also behave like, where can we really go? That's why our voice of the voiceless went to the street to show all of us we are not happy with service delivery. Then again, you police, you know that you are arresting your own boss who pays your salary. That uniform you are putting on, demanded by black, yellow, red. You are turning against your own boss.
Thank you, Juma. Thank you very much. Juma says we need an unconditional release of all peaceful protesters who were arrested and are currently on remand. Protests were very peaceful, and he's asking where can we go as a country. Stephen, do we have another caller?
Yes, hello.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. This is Jimmy. Calling right away from Uganda.
Yes, please.
I thank you for moderating those two members of parliament and others. The concern I am going to put forward is about the police, which my friend has just talked about. Actually, I don't blame the police who go to arrest, but I blame the instructor and the boss of that is some person who go to arrest. And another thing is this Uganda, most people have failed to understand, this Uganda is being managed by people who are brutal, and because they have their big officers. And again, I think they have big authority. That's why they handle other people like that. But I want to end by saying, let them know that there is time for everything.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Jimmy.
Hello.
Yes. Hello.
Good
morning.
Yes, my name is Councillor Serunjeji Patrick from Mutunga, Chigaga, Rwanda South.
Yes, Patrick. Councillor Patrick.
Yes. Now, those you children, okay, not children, those youth that are arrested, that they are protesting against corruption, they are not supposed to be arrested because they notified the police about their riot.
Not riot. It was
It's a
a
protest. It's not a riot. It wasn't a riot. It was a protest, a peaceful protest.
Yes, it was a protest. So they notified the police, but the police went ahead and arrested them. Why are they arrested? They have no case there. I remain Councillor Serunjeji Patrick.
Councillor Patrick. Yes. Okay, I think for now we are done. Let's just take a quick reactions to the comments and contributions that came through. I think one thing that is recurrent is the unconditional release of all the peaceful protesters. Jimmy says don't blame the police, but blame the persons or person instructing them to conduct arrests. He says he thinks Uganda is managed by people who are just brutal. Councillor Patrick says the young protesters shouldn't have been arrested. They had sought permission earlier. Which brings me to another thing that Herbert had actually talked about earlier. The issue of safe spaces where people, because, well, the law provides for peaceful protests. but we don't seem to have the safe spaces where people can actually go and voice out their frustrations.
And Parliament would be one of those safe spaces.
So how do we create safe spaces? Because it is important for citizens to exercise their democratic right. Voices of dissent help to check power holders,
excesses.
to check excesses of power holders. But how do we create, how important is it, first of all, to have these safe spaces? And how do we create or reclaim these spaces?
Okay. First and foremost, we need, like where he mentions that the police has ceased to keep law and order, they're only keeping order. We need, the police has to recognize that they need to act lawfully. And lawfully means they have to recognize the rights, the fundamental rights of the citizens embedded in the Constitution, given inherent rights. And one of them is that freedom of expression and assembly. And so when there are peaceful demonstrations, police should guide on the safe space where to go and where to voice, rather than stopping completely that expression. So I agree with the position that we need those safe spaces. And we can only have the safe spaces once police recognizes that people have a right to peaceful demonstrations. And then that way they begin to guide, like other countries, developed countries do. Even when there are commissions, UN gatherings, there is always a safe space where they place people and say, put your tents there, don't go beyond this, stay there. But the message is given and the message passes out. We just need to become an accommodative country and recognize the different roles we play as different institutions. But once the impunity takes over and failure, intolerance, then that's when we get into where we are right now. Unconditional release of the people who were arrested, I do agree. I even feel bad to call them suspects because they were doing a lawful act peacefully within the Constitution. So once you begin to call them suspects, of course I'm conflicted as a lawyer, because they've already appeared before court, then you begin to use the word suspect. But in truth, these are Ugandans that love their country, that really stood in solidarity to fight corruption. So when we say unconditional release, we are calling upon the institutions that now have them, like the judiciary, to discharge them. We are calling upon the Directorate of Public Prosecution, which is the prosecutor, to put in nolle prosequi, withdraw charges, so that there is unconditional release. We are calling upon the courts that we handle to grant bond in case there is not yet that call. And then we are calling upon these instructors indeed. But police should know that under the current law, especially where there was inhuman degrading and torture, they cannot plead powers from above. I was instructed. They're going to face it individually. When these young people come out and they begin to take up charges of violation of their rights. So the police, when they are doing whatever they are doing, they should be mindful that the law does no longer protect them in their individual capacity, as long as they can be identified to have committed these offenses. Police brutality is on an increase, and we want to call upon the leadership of the police, the IGP, to really check the police brutality and ensure that they themselves become law-abiding by acting lawfully whenever they are doing their work.
Okay, we just have a few minutes to go, and I want us to wind up. I'll open the mic to you, Herbert.
Well,
about the issue of safe spaces again.
Yeah, the safe spaces might be a long journey to achieve, given the circumstances of our politics. But we need to keep advocating for them because they are important. They are the only places where we need to communicate with the leaders, communicate with the policymakers, in case there is a breakdown in communication or representation. And I want to urge you and encourage all the young people who are involved and their families to understand that we are in a very abnormal circumstances and situation whereby at the moment we need a remedy. We need to achieve something. We need to win something. The security forces right now might be used against those, but we need to stick to the point. If we start looking at the security forces, we shall lose a point. We just know they are deployed on instructions. And what we are trying to achieve here has a bearing on those who are deploying these ones.
Herbert, before we wind up, I just want to read for you guys this tweet by the president, something like, avoid this mistake because the evidence in court will shock many. As I said above, the planners of these demonstrations wanted to do very bad things. The charge by the police of idle and disorderly, I suspect, was used because the deployed personnel did not have all the information. This was a high-quality intelligence-led operation. I have most of the information. That's the president. And it says next week he'll make a broadcast and discuss more on the issue. It says, I praise the Lord that there was no bloodshed on Tuesday. The fight against corruption is in my hands. I just need evidence and action will be taken. The accounting officers are the guardians of government money, procurement and personnel. That includes jobs and welfare. They let us and themselves down. I am now leading this little war. We fought the bigger war. We shall win this one also.
Yeah, well, you see, we may not go delve much into the tweet because of time.
Yeah.
But I still stand strong in protection of the protesters and the call. Literally, I have taken on myself, first of all, make the cause of these the protesters clearly known and understood. Where there is misinformation or where there is clashing information, even where I still believe that even where there is influence, let us understand that the participants, whether influenced or not, have a point. And that point is as a result of failure to address that issue. And there is evidence. All we need is, even if there is no evidence but there are allegations, why don't you want to prove this right? Why don't you want to erase this to be known? That is why they put abuse of office. That is why there is conflict of interest. And that is why there is impunity. All of those surround around those who are in positions of responsibility, abusing the responsibility. So I still stand strong, believing that whether there is influence or not, whether there is some sort of conflict of interest or not, the grand norm in all this and what we all want to achieve is one thing. Can we have a country that is accountable? Can we have leaders and officers that are accountable? Can the taxpayers' money do what it is supposed to do? And in any case, if there is a problem, is it the right way to start now accusing and gathering information on the protesters of corruption, where we have space to address and ascertain those who are accused for corruption? The two are important.
Thank you.
Do we castigate the protesters or do we check those we are protesting against?
We're going into news time and you wanted to? No, we're done. We're done. Okay, thank you very much to both of you. Herbert Burora, anti-corruption activist, and Dr. Sylvia Namubiro Mukasa, Legal Aid Service Providers Network. She's a former magistrate. Thank you very much, Sylvia and Herbert, for making time for the show.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Hope to have you again some other time. And VPN returns next Saturday, same time. I'm Judith Atim, wishing you all a wonderful weekend.